Welcome to my channel Reddit Stories. Today I'd want to tell you about my relationship story. I'm 38 years old man and my wife Sage is 39 years old woman. We married 5 years ago. When I first met Sage, she was a naturally gorgeous woman. Later, she became influenced by Kim Kardashian and underwent various Botox and surgical treatments. I first met Sage at a musical event where I was playing guitar and she was working as an event manager and promoter. Before the show, I was very nervous because it was my first time playing guitar in front of a large crowd, and Sage calmed me down by telling me that I didn't need to make eye contact with anyone in the audience. She was so kind and sweet with me. I nailed the event with her encouragement and support, and that night I took Sage's number and invited her for lunch, and that's how we met. I adored the gentle and easygoing Sage, who had a good heart for everyone. A few months later, I proposed to Sage, and she invited me to meet her parents. When I met Sage's parents, I discovered them to be strange and narcissistic. Sage's father had 2 wives and her mother didn't seem to mind. Sage's father tried to embarrass me for my career as a guitarist. He criticized Sage's decision in front of me, saying that she worked with well-known artists and that she chose you. I then angrily replied to her father, pointing out that his 2 wives had picked him even though they could have found someone better. And my comment enraged him and he asked me to leave his house, which I immediately did. Sage tried to stop me, but I had no intention of returning to her parents' house. I told Sage that she had to pick between me and her parents, and she chose me because she knew how strange her parents were. We married in a small ceremony attended by my family and Sage's friends. After our marriage, Sage kept her career as an event manager while I worked as a guitarist in a small band. Sage used to plan my events, and it was because of her that we were getting gigs at different events, for which I was grateful to my wife, and because I knew Sage was doing better financially than me. She was making more money than I was, so I assumed complete responsibility for our home. From doing laundry to cleaning dishes to cooking, I made sure to take full care of our house, because I only had gigs twice a week and used to practice music at home on the other days. We were content with this arrangement. I knew that as a musical group we were giving it our all, so I was optimistic that we would soon receive our big break. But one day Sage came home from work. She seemed tired. I put a plate of food on the table and invited her to eat, and she began yelling at me, saying that I was being useless, that our marriage was a burden on her, and that she was playing the role of a man. I was startled when she said this because I was giving her all of my earnings. I was earning less than she was, but it wasn't like I was doing nothing. I informed her that I participated financially as well and that I was bearing all of the domestic responsibilities alone. And she yelled again, saying that I was only getting gigs because of her and that I was nothing on my own. I was surprised to see my wife, who was really kind and gentle, and I tried not to drag the issue any further. I knew she was stressed at work, so I apologized. And when she saw me apologizing despite her meanness, she burst into tears and confessed that she was having an affair at work with a comedian named Paul, whose performances she was organizing. She was telling me all of this as if it were normal. She was telling me how talented and attractive Paul was, and this time I couldn't hold back my rage and yelled at her. Telling her I wouldn't bear her affairs, she shamelessly claimed that these affairs were normal and that because she spent more time outside, she needed someone at work as well. And since she was playing the role of a man in our marriage so she could do whatever she wanted, I was shocked. Then I realized why she kept referring to herself as man of the house, because according to her upbringing, men could have different partners, which is what her father had done. Having 2 wives in the same house, I realized how messed up and dysfunctional this family was and how Sage was similar to them, but I wasn't going to tolerate this bullshit. I packed my bag and decided to leave because we were renting the house and she had her name on the rent agreements so I could leave easily. Sage didn't expect me to leave. She was astonished when I packed my things and said I was overreacting, but I left the house nonetheless. I stayed with my friends for a few days and instead of performing in musical events, we all looked for jobs. I kept applying despite rejections, and one day I finally obtained a position in a finance department because luckily I had a degree in finance. Sage continued contacting me, but I didn't want to be involved in her drama. I wanted to fully focus on my career. I was earning great money and I continued attending online courses to educate myself. I expanded my network on LinkedIn, and I was able to gain promotions within 6 months with my consistent efforts, and I made numerous friends in the office. including my secretary Emma. Emma and I began dating when I was in a better mental and professional situation. Sage and I were separated for a year at this point. Emma, my new girlfriend, called me one night and said she had purchased concert tickets for us and that we needed a weekend outing, on the weekend. Emma and I went to the concert and were dancing and singing, and Emma was hugging me when I noticed Sage there. She was staring at me, tears welling up in her eyes. And I realized I still had a soft spot for her. I became so uneasy that I left Emma there to use the restroom. It was difficult for me to be in the same room as Sage. A lot had changed since the last time we met. Sage came after me and stopped me in the corridor. She was looking beautiful and innocent in a brown gown and was crying and begging me to talk to her. It was difficult for me to resist her because she was my first love. She begged me for forgiveness, saying she was sorry and that our relationship deserved a second chance. And that she had left Paul after I had left her. She was still my wife, and I was ready to forgive her. But I needed time because I was there with that new girlfriend Emma, and I didn't know how to explain her the situation, and I couldn't just leave her there because she was also my colleague. I took Sage's number and promised to call her. We hugged, and I returned to the stage side where I had left Emma before going to the restroom, but Emma was not there, so I went looking for her and found her with another guy. I was relieved to have caught her because it meant I didn't have to break up with her. 2 days later I called Sage and we decided to move in together. We spent a month looking for a house before moving in. This time I had enough money to get a larger house. This time I didn't need Sage to pay additionally. In fact, I didn't need her money at all because I was making enough for my job and other initiatives. We selected a lovely house and moved in together, and Sage treated me as if I were a royal man. She had changed so much, and her attitude had become so kind that it was as if I was witnessing her feminine side for the first time, while I was in my masculine role. This time, I wasn't doing housework alone. In fact, my role in domestic activities was minor. Sage kept her job as an event manager, but this time she was working as a freelancer, so her work hours were reduced. Because I was doing everything on my own, the time I spent alone developing my career was challenging. Now I had Sage to take care of my needs. From breakfast to dinner she was there for me to serve, to talk, to provide me comfort. So I had forgiven and forgotten our past because in reality we both spent time with other people and that didn't make us happy. When Sage saw me happy and in love with her, she began resuming communication with her parents. She was in contact with them, but we didn't meet them or invite them to our gatherings. I told her she could invite her mother but I couldn't have her father in my house. Sage both moms started coming to our house for long stays. They were both sweet women who treated me like a son, so I enjoyed their presence with us. They would knit sweaters for me and cook healthy meals for me. I had been completely smothered by this love bombing by Sage and her two mothers because I had lost both of my parents as a child. And Sage's mothers were now a permanent part of our household, and Sage began getting makeovers, Botox, and surgeries using my money, and her appearance was drastically transformed. I told her she didn't need any of it, but she told me she felt more confident after all of these procedures. A few years have passed since our marriage. Sage and her mothers were the only family I had, and I was completely in love with them. One evening, Sage and I were planning Thanksgiving dinner, when we decided to host a big dinner party instead of a Christmas celebration because we had vacation plans for Christmas. So we thought to arrange big dinner instead of throwing Christmas party. I was making a guest list when Sage began crying and asked me to let her invite her father, that man who even refused to talk to me on the phone when I tried to reconcile with him a few years ago. But since my vision was broad and my heart was clear, I had no problem in inviting an elderly man on Thanksgiving. So I told Sage to invite whoever she wants and asked her to make the guest list. So Sage made the list, invited few of my friends and mostly her family and friends. Sage and I watched the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade from our couch on Thanksgiving Day. We had decided on a menu of roast turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, stuffing, cranberry sauce and gravy, baked sweet potatoes, fried mac and cheese balls and Brussels sprouts, green bean casserole, and pumpkin pie for dessert, pecan pie, apple pie, and carrot cake. Sage's moms were assisting us with the dinner menu. Sage's father decided to arrive an hour before the dinner and that man hugged Sage and ignored me, so I said hello. The guests had begun to arrive and I was greeting them, when I noticed Sage's father sitting with a young man and both were talking and smoking. I asked Sage who that young man was and she said it was her cousin Cole and her dad couldn't drive alone, so Cole came with her dad. My friends from the musical band had arrived. So I hugged them and ignored Sage's father and the cousin Cole who didn't bother to say hi to me. When we were having dinner, Sage's family sat on one side of the table and my friends sat on the other. Sage and I were serving dinner and ensuring that everyone had enough food when Sage's mother requested me to bring dessert from the kitchen. I was serving sweet meals to Sage's family when I noticed his cousin Cole wearing a chain with the initials S and C. I assumed it was the name of his partner. After dinner, I sat with my friends while Sage sat with her family. Her father kept making rude remarks about my friends and myself, which I disregarded because Sage was telling him to behave. My friend started going home after dessert and coffee, but Sage's family decided to stay because her father wasn't feeling well. Only her cousin Cole was leaving. When I discovered Sage's father staying at my house, that man who was continuously mistreating me, I chose to spend the night with my friend since Sage's father's behavior was toxic, and I also wanted to spend some time with my friends. I took my clothes and brush and told Sage that her family could stay here and that I was going to spend the night with my friends. Sage asked if it was because of her father and she would ask her father to go, and I said no, that they could stay and that I needed time with my friends. I stayed at a friend's apartment. Our old musical band felt to play music in that apartment after a long time. We played guitar and sang together. We were thankful for our friendship. And after singing, joking and eating, we were so sleepy that all of my friends fell asleep on the bed and sofa, and I sat there and checked my emails to kill time. But when I did,
I realized I had a deadline to complete my project, so I panicked and tried to do it on my phone, but it was impossible to work with a phone. I needed my laptop. I decided to return to my home around midnight to finish the work on my laptop, so I opened the door with my keys, retrieved my laptop from the study room and returned to work on the living room sofa. Everyone else was asleep, and I didn't want to wake them up. I was creating accounting spreadsheets when I realized I needed my office bag to do certain calculations. I checked that bag in the study room but it was not there. So I discreetly decided to check in my bedroom. I was cautious since I didn't want to wake anyone because Sage and her mothers had spent the entire day cooking and making other preparations. I opened our bedroom door in silence, and when I opened the door I was astonished to see someone sleeping on my bed with Sage, so I switched on the lights and tossed the blanket off them. I was shocked to see Cole sleeping in my bed with Sage. I couldn't believe it, so I began shouting and punching Cole in the face. Update. That Thanksgiving night was the dreadful night when I caught my wife Sage with Cole, and when I began beating Cole, Sage's parents arrived, and her father blamed me and said it was nothing. Cole informed me that he was Sage's second partner and not her cousin. They did not legally married but were spiritually married, according to them. When her father shouted at me and informed me I wasn't the only person on the planet whose spouse had done that and Sage had done nothing wrong, I tossed them out of my house in midnight. I slapped Sage and told her to leave immediately. I didn't give her time to grab her belongings. After I tossed them out, I searched Sage's belongings and discovered her phone. That contained all proofs of her cheating in the form of images and videos, which I used to blackmail Cole and Sage. Cole realized his reputation was put at risk, so he abandoned Sage and her family. I promptly filed for divorce and took Sage's belongings, which included gold and diamond jewels. I couldn't bear the thought of Sage living in peace after what she had done to me. So I blackmailed her father with tapes of Sage's affair with Cole, and her father sold his house to compensate me for my emotional and financial loss. Sage was used to living an extravagant life with my money, and now she has lost both my money and my love. She has been suffering from severe depression. And she keeps calling me to ask for forgiveness. Her mental health is a mess, so whenever she calls me, she keeps talking about memories from when we first met. She probably has lost our recent memories, or it could be an act, but I do everything I can to avoid her calls. I only feel sad for Sage's mothers who have suffered as a result of Sage and her father's actions. I occasionally send them small sums of money for their medicines, or I occasionally call them to inquire about their health, and they always apologize for what happened. I have lost trust in women again. I date different women, but I am not ready for a long-term relationship. Sage's mother occasionally asks me to reconcile, which is not an option for me, but until next Thanksgiving, I'm hoping to marry again. Please advise me on how to regain trust in women and how to find a graceful woman who is not insane and values family life.